Your mother tells you she's fine. She says it on the phone. She says it at the dinner table. She says it with a smile that you've trusted your entire life. And she is lying to you. Not out of malice, not to hurt you. She is lying to you out of love, out of fear, and out of a kind of pride so deep she may not even know she's doing it. Right now, tonight, there is a very good chance that a parent you love is hiding something from you. A fall they didn't mention, a bill they couldn't pay, a name they couldn't remember, a fear that keeps them up at night. And they are hiding it precisely because they love you and precisely because they're afraid of what will happen if you find out. This is one of the most painful and least understood dynamics in the entire relationship between aging parents and their adult children. The people who raised you, who spent your whole childhood telling you to be honest with them, will spend their old age lying to you about the things that matter most. And if you don't understand why, you will miss the warning signs until it's far too late. So today, I'm going to take you inside the mind of an aging parent and show you exactly why they hide their problems from the children who love them most. I'm going to walk you through the real reasons, the ones that go far deeper than simple stubbornness. Because once you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, everything your parent does starts to make a different kind of sense. And then, in the second half, I'm going to show you how to respond, how to become the kind of person your parent can finally be honest with, without shame and without fear. Because here is the truth. You cannot force an aging parent to stop hiding, but you can change who you are to them, so that hiding stops feeling necessary. And at the very end, I'm going to give you the single sentence, the exact words, that can open a door your parent has kept locked for years. Stay with me for that, because it may be the most useful thing you hear all year. Let's begin by going inside their mind. The first reason aging parents hide their problems is the one most people guess, but almost nobody truly understands: fear of losing their independence. Now, when you hear fear of losing independence, it sounds almost abstract, like a phrase from a brochure. Let me make it real, because for your parent, it is not abstract at all. It is the most concrete fear they have. Put yourself in their body for a moment. Imagine you have spent 70, 80, 90 years as the author of your own life. You decided when to wake up and when to sleep. You managed your own money, your own home, your own choices, for longer than your children have been alive. Your independence is not a convenience to you. It is your identity. It is the whole story of who you are. A capable adult, the one who takes care of things, the one others rely on. And now imagine that you begin to feel that slipping. You forget a word. You lose your balance. You can't read the fine print on the bill. And a terrible thought arrives. If my children find out, they might take this away from me. They might decide I can't live alone. They might take the car keys. They might move me somewhere. They might start making my decisions for me. To your parent, admitting a problem doesn't feel like getting help. It feels like handing over the keys to their own life. They might decide I can't live alone. They might take the car keys. They might move me somewhere. They might start making my decisions for me. To your parent, admitting a problem doesn't feel like getting help. It feels like handing over the keys to their own life. So they don't admit it. They hide the fall. They cover the confusion. They insist they're fine. Not because they don't see the problem, but because they see it perfectly, and they are terrified of what your knowing might cost them. Every hidden problem is, underneath, a desperate attempt to stay in charge of their own life for a little longer. And here is what makes this so tragic and so important for you to understand. Their hiding actually makes the outcome they fear more likely, not less. Because when a parent hides their decline until it explodes into a crisis, the crisis is exactly what forces the sudden loss of independence they were trying to avoid. If they had spoken up early, small adjustments could have kept them independent for years, By hiding until the fall, the fire, the wandering, the collapse, they guarantee the emergency response, the hospital, the rush decisions, the loss of control. Fear of losing independence is the very thing that costs them their independence, and they cannot see this from inside the fear. Only you can see it, which is why understanding this is the first step to helping them. Think about what this fear looks like from the inside with something as ordinary as car keys, because the car is where this fear lives most intensely for millions of older people. To you, the car might be a practical concern. Is it still safe for Dad to drive? To your father, the car is not transportation. It is freedom itself. It is the difference between being a full adult who can go where he pleases and a dependent who has to ask, wait, and be driven around like a child. He knows on some level that his driving isn't what it used to be. He's had a close call or two he never mentioned, but he also knows with absolute clarity that the day he admits it is the day the keys disappear, and with them his ability to see his friends, run his own errands. So he says nothing. He hides the close calls. He gets defensive the moment anyone raises the subject, and from the outside, it looks like stubbornness, even recklessness, but it isn't. It's a man staring at the loss of his freedom and doing the only thing he can think of to hold on to it a little longer. When you understand that every hidden problem has this shape, a small concealment protecting a huge, terrifying loss, you stop seeing your parent as difficult and start seeing them as frightened. And frightened people don't need to be defeated. They need to be reassured. The second reason is closely related but distinct, and it cuts even deeper. They do not want to become a burden to you. This one is pure love, twisted into something harmful. Your parents spent decades taking care of you. They changed you, fed you, worried over you, sacrificed for you, and somewhere along the way, they built their entire sense of themselves around being the one who gives, not the one who takes. When they need help, they insist they don't. They would rather suffer in silence than become, in their own eyes, a burden on the child they love. It is one of the most heartbreaking expressions of love there is. A parent hurting themselves to spare you, when sparing you is the last thing you actually want. You have to understand how powerful this is, because it means the very love between you is being used as a reason to hide. The closer your parent feels to you, the more they may hide, because the more they love you, the less they want to burden you. This is why the most devoted, most self-sacrificing parents are often the ones who hide the most and whose families are the most blindsided when the truth finally comes out. Their silence was not distance, it was devotion, pointed in exactly the wrong direction. This is the reason that produces the most devastating surprises, so let me make it concrete. There's a pattern that plays out in countless families, where the parent's finances quietly fall apart while the parent insists everything is fine. A widow living alone starts to struggle. Maybe the savings are thinner than the family knows. Maybe there have been some costly mistakes, some bills slipping. Her adult children have their own mortgages, their own kids in college, their own stretched budgets, and she knows it. She sees the pressure they're already under, and the thought of adding herself to that load, of being the mother who becomes a financial problem for the children she spent her life providing for, is intolerable to her, so she hides it. She cuts back on food, on heat, on her own medications, quietly rationing to make the money last, rather than tell her children she's in trouble. She'd sooner go without than become a weight on them. And the family has no idea, because from the outside, she's still insisting she's perfectly fine, still waving off every offer of help, still playing the role of the mother who needs nothing. By the time it comes out, and it usually comes out through a crisis, an eviction notice, a shut-off, a health emergency caused by the very rationing she thought was protecting everyone, the damage is far worse than it ever needed to be. And the children are left with an awful guilt-soaked question. Why didn't she just tell us? The answer is the cruelest part. She didn't tell you because she loves you, because in her mind, telling you would have made her the burden she could not stand to be. Understand this, and you understand why an offer of help by itself is never enough. You have to make receiving help feel like something other than becoming a burden. And that is a large part of the work I'm about to describe. The third reason is shame, and this one is rarely talked about because it's uncomfortable. There is a deep, primal humiliation in losing abilities you once had. Think about the specific things that decline in age: continence, memory. The ability to bathe yourself, dress yourself, feed yourself, clean yourself. These are not neutral skills. These are the very things we learn as small children, as the markers of no longer being a helpless baby. And to lose them, to find yourself unable to control your own body or your own mind, is to feel yourself sliding backward toward a helplessness that is profoundly shameful to a proud adult. Your parent may be able to hide many things, but the ones that involve the body and the most basic functions carry a shame so intense that they will go to extraordinary lengths to conceal them. A parent who has had an accident they're ashamed of will hide it, clean it up, lie about it, rather than let you see. A parent who got lost driving to a place they've driven to for 40 years will be so frightened and humiliated by what that means that they will never mention it. Shame doesn't just make them hide the problem. It makes them hide from the problem, avoiding doctors, avoiding conversations, avoiding anything that would force them to face what they can't bear to admit even to themselves. Consider how this plays out in a real home. Picture a father who was his whole life the fixer, the man who could repair anything, who kept the family's cars running, who was never lost, never confused, always the competent one everyone turned to. In his early 80s, he starts to get turned around. One afternoon, he drives to the hardware store he's gone to for 30 years, and on the way home, for 20 terrifying minutes, he cannot remember which way to turn. He eventually finds his way back, shaken to his core. Now, what does a man like that do with an experience like that? He does not call his daughter and say, "Something frightening happened today. I think my mind is slipping." The shame of that admission, for a man whose entire identity was being the sharp one, the capable one, is more than he can bear. So he tells no one. He just quietly stops driving to unfamiliar places. Then he stops driving at night. Then he makes excuses about why he'd rather she drive when they go out. Each small retreat is designed to hide the shameful truth, and each one is read by the family as him just slowing down a little, getting older, nothing alarming. The shame didn't just hide one scary afternoon. It reorganized his entire life around concealment, and it kept the family from seeing a pattern that, caught early, could have been managed with dignity instead of discovered in a crisis. That is what shame does. It doesn't produce one lie. It produces a life quietly rearranged to keep the truth hidden. The fourth reason is denial, and this one operates below the level of conscious choice, which makes it different from the others. Sometimes your parent isn't hiding the problem from you. They're hiding it from themselves. Facing the reality of your own decline, truly facing it, means facing your own mortality, the loss of your future, the shrinking of everything you are. That is one of the hardest things any human being ever has to do, and the mind has powerful defenses against it. So your parent may genuinely, sincerely believe they are fine, even as the evidence piles up around them, because to believe otherwise is too frightening to hold. When they say, "I'm fine," they may not be lying to you at all. They may be telling you what they've convinced themselves is true, because the alternative is unbearable. This is why arguing with the facts often fails so completely. You point to the evidence, And they don't just disagree, they can't afford to agree because agreeing would mean letting in a truth they're not ready to survive. Denial isn't stubbornness. It's a shield against terror. And you cannot simply rip a shield away from a frightened person and expect them to thank you. There's a fifth reason, quieter than the others, but very real. They don't want to worry you, and they don't want to be treated differently. Your parent has watched what happens when other families find out a parent is declining. They've seen the hovering, the worried looks, the way the adult children start talking to their parent, in that gentle, careful, slightly condescending voice. The voice you use with a child or an invalid. And your parent does not want to become that. They want to remain, in your eyes, the person they've always been. Your capable, whole, respected parent, not a fragile patient to be managed. So they hide, to preserve the relationship as it was, to keep being seen as themselves rather than as a problem. Every time a family responds to a small admission with a big anxious overreaction, it teaches the parent to admit less next time. They learn that honesty gets them treated like glass, so they choose silence to stay human in your eyes. Now those are the 5 reasons parents hide: fear of losing independence, refusal to be a burden, shame, denial, and the wish to be seen as themselves. And I want you to notice something about all 5. Not one of them is about you being a bad child. Not one of them means your parent doesn't trust you or doesn't love you. In fact, most of them exist because of how much they love you and how much your respect means to them. So if you've been feeling hurt, wondering why your own parent won't be honest with you, wondering what you did wrong, let that go. You didn't do anything wrong. You're up against some of the deepest forces in the human heart: pride, love, shame, fear, and the terror of mortality itself. That's what you're really dealing with when your mother says, "I'm fine." Now, knowing all of that, the question becomes, what do you do about it? How do you help someone who is hiding for reasons this deep? That's the second half, and I promised you it would be practical. So let's turn to exactly how to respond. And remember, I've got that one specific sentence for you at the very end. The words that can open the locked door. Keep listening for it. The first and most important shift is this: stop trying to win the argument and start trying to remove the fear. Almost every family gets this wrong. They treat their parents' denial as a factual disagreement to be settled with evidence. "Dad, you fell twice last month. You can't keep living alone." "Mum, you forgot the stove again. This is serious." You marshal the facts, you build your case, and you present it, and your parent digs in, gets defensive, shuts the conversation down, and hides even more next time. Why? Because you were arguing with the surface while ignoring the fear underneath. When your parent resists, they are not really saying, "You're wrong about the facts." They are saying, "I'm terrified of what those facts mean for my life." If you win the argument but leave the fear in place, you've won nothing. You've just taught them to hide better. So the entire game changes when you stop trying to prove the problem and start trying to address the fear. Instead of, "You can't live alone," the real conversation is, "I know how much staying in your home means to you, and I want to help make that possible for as long as we can." You're not on opposite sides of the facts anymore. You're on the same side of their fear. The second shift is to reassure them explicitly and repeatedly about the exact thing they're most afraid of, that admitting a problem means losing control. You have to say the thing they're terrified of out loud and then take it off the table. Tell them directly, "I am not trying to take over your life. I am not going to put you somewhere against your will. These are your decisions, and they stay your decisions. I just want to be on your team." You cannot say this once. You have to prove it over time, through your actions, because your parent has spent years assuming the opposite, and a lifetime of fear doesn't dissolve in one conversation. You cannot say this once. You have to prove it, over time, through your actions, because your parent has spent years assuming the opposite, and a lifetime of fear doesn't dissolve in one conversation. Every time they admit something small and you respond with calm support instead of panic and control, you teach them that honesty is safe. Every time you include them in the decision instead of making it for them, you chip away at the fear. The goal is to become the person they can tell the truth to without being punished for it. And you become that person by handling their small honesties so well that they trust you with the bigger ones. The third shift is to control your own reaction, because your reaction is teaching your parent whether to keep talking or to shut down. This is harder than it sounds. When your mother finally admits she's been having dizzy spells, every instinct in you wants to leap into action, to worry out loud, to demand she see a doctor tomorrow, to start managing. But if your reaction to a small admission is a big wave of alarm and control, you have just confirmed her worst fear about telling you, and she will tell you less next time. So when your parent gives you a piece of honesty, receive it calmly. Thank them for telling you. Ask questions gently instead of issuing orders. Treat the moment as the beginning of a conversation, not the trigger for a takeover. The calmer and less controlling you are in the face of their honesty, the more honesty you will get. You are training them, in a sense, to trust you with the truth, and the training is entirely in how you respond. Let me show you the difference in a single moment, because it's easy to describe and hard to do. Imagine your mother, near the end of a phone call, mentions almost in passing that she's been feeling dizzy when she stands up. There are two ways this goes. In the first, you react the way worry makes you want to react. Your voice jumps. You say, "Mum, that's serious. You could fall. You need to see the doctor this week. Are you drinking enough water? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" A rush of alarm and instruction. And here's what your mother learns from that 30 seconds. Telling you the truth produces a wave of panic and orders. So the next time something's wrong, some quiet part of her decides it's not worth the fuss, and she says nothing. In the second version, you hear the same words and you take a breath. You say calmly, "Thanks for telling me that. That sounds unsettling. How often is it happening?" You ask, you listen, you stay steady, and near the end, you gently offer, "Would it be worth mentioning to the doctor next time you go? I could come with you if you'd like." Same information, same concern underneath, but in the second version, your mother learns that telling you the truth is safe, that it gets her a partner, not a manager. That is the entire difference, and it lives in your first reaction. The families whose parents open up are almost never the ones who cared more. They're the ones who stayed calm in the exact moments when panic would have been easier. The families whose parents open up are almost never the ones who cared more. They're the ones who stayed calm in the exact moments when panic would have been easier. The families whose parents open up are almost never the ones who cared more. They're the ones who stayed calm in the exact moments when panic would have been easier. The families whose parents open up are almost never the ones who cared more. They're the ones who stayed calm in the exact moments when panic would have been easier. The families whose parents open up are almost never the ones who cared more. They're the ones who stayed calm in the exact moments when panic would have been easier. Precisely because it can feel less humiliating to a proud parent to receive intimate care from a professional than from their own child, and it protects the parent-child relationship from being reduced to caregiver and patient. Reading their shame correctly and shielding them from it is one of the deepest kindnesses you can offer. The fifth shift is to bring in allies your parent may listen to more easily than you. There's a hard truth here. Sometimes your parent will not hear something from you, their child, no matter how well you say it, precisely because you're their child. The parent-child dynamic is powerful, and admitting weakness to the person you raised can feel impossible, but that same parent might listen to their doctor, to a peer their own age who's been through it, to a member of the clergy, to a trusted friend, to a professional whose whole job is these conversations. Don't take it personally if you're not the one who can get through. The goal is that your parent gets help and stays safe, not that you personally are the one who convinces them. Enlist the people they respect. Sometimes the most effective thing you can do is step back and let someone else open the door. Now, before I give you that one sentence, I want to prepare you for something. Because if I don't, you might do everything right and still walk away discouraged. Even when you do all of this perfectly, even when you remove the fear, protect the dignity, control your reaction, bring in allies, your parent may still resist. They may still insist they're fine. Change may come slowly, in small increments, with steps backward. That does not mean you failed. You are working against a lifetime of pride and some of the most powerful fears a human being can feel. What you're doing is not flipping a switch. It's slowly, patiently making yourself into a safe person, so that when your parent is finally ready, and the readiness may come only when a problem grows too big to hide, you are the one they turn to. Instead of the emergency room. Your job is not to force the door open. Your job is to make sure that when they finally decide to open it, you're standing there, calm and ready, instead of having battered it down and lost their trust in the process. Patience here is not passivity. It is the strategy. I also want to say something to the part of you that may be carrying guilt or hurt through all of this, because I know it's there. Maybe you're realizing that your parent has been hiding things for a long time, and you didn't see it. Maybe you're replaying conversations, feeling like you should have known. Or maybe you're hurt that the parent you love won't let you in, after everything. Set that down, gently. Their hiding was never a verdict on you. It was the shape of their fear, and the depth of their pride, and the fierceness of their love, all tangled together. And the fact that you're here, trying to understand them well enough to help, that is exactly what a good child does. You don't need to have seen it sooner. You see it now. And seeing it now, while there's still time to become the safe person they can turn to, is the thing that matters. So here it is, the sentence I promised you. When you sit down with your parent, when you want to open the door they've kept locked, you don't lead with the problem. You don't lead with the fall or the bill or the forgotten name. You lead with this. Mom, I'm not here to take anything away from you. I'm here to help you keep your life the way you want it, for as long as possible. And I can only do that if you'll be honest with me about how things really are. Say it slowly, mean it, and then be quiet and let them answer in their own time. Look at what that sentence does. It names their deepest fear, losing their life, their independence, and it takes it off the table in the same breath. It reframes your role from threat to ally. It reframes honesty from something dangerous into the very thing that protects what they love, and it puts them in control where they've been terrified of not being. You are not promising them nothing bad will ever happen. You are promising that whatever happens, you're on their side and their life stays theirs. That is the door, not a demand, not evidence, not an ultimatum. A promise that makes the truth safe to tell. This channel exists to help families understand exactly these hidden, painful dynamics before they turn into crises. The things no one tells you about your aging parents until you're already in the middle of it. If this helped you see your own parent a little more clearly or gave you a way in that you didn't have before, that's the entire reason it's here. Subscribe so the next one reaches you before you need it, not after. These videos are meant to be the understanding you're glad you had a year early, instead of the understanding you wish you'd had in time. And do one thing for me before you go. In the comments, tell me, have you noticed your own parent hiding something now that you understand why they might? You are far from alone in this, and you may be surprised how many people are quietly recognizing their own mother or father. If someone you know is struggling to understand why their aging parent won't open up, share this with them. It might be the thing that helps them get through the door before a crisis forces it. One important note before I let you go. I'm not a doctor, a therapist, or a counselor, and nothing in this video is medical or psychological advice. Every family and every parent is different, and if your parent is showing signs of serious decline, memory loss, or a health crisis, please involve their doctor and the appropriate professionals. What this video offers is understanding and a way to approach a hard conversation. It is not a substitute for the real medical and professional help your parent may need. So the next time your mother tells you she's fine and some quiet part of you knows she isn't, remember what's really happening behind those words. It isn't dishonesty. It's fear and love and pride and shame, all wrapped around a person who is trying, in the only way they know how, to stay themselves for a little longer. You can't shame them out of it, and you can't argue them out of it, but you can love them out of it, slowly, patiently, by becoming the one person in the world they finally feel safe telling the truth to. That is the work, and it is some of the most important work you will ever do, because on the other side of that locked door is the chance to help the people who raised you. While there's still time to do it with tenderness instead of in an emergency, start becoming that safe person now, long before you think you need to. Because by the time the truth comes out on its own, the easy years to have done this will already be behind you.